All right, y'all, and welcome back to part 2 of Dorothy Dandridge's natal chart reading. Right now, we are getting into her Mars placement, and Mars is a planet that represents action, ambition, courage, drive. It's also indicative of your sexual energy, your passion with your sexuality. So Dorothy's Mars was in Aquarius. People who are Aquarians are very individualistic. They are air signs. They blow their own way. They definitely go their own way, and in a lot of ways, Dorothy had that sort of drive. She wanted to break barriers as a Black female actress. She wanted to go her own way, and I think she really wanted to push the envelope with what was allowed of her. And she did that in a lot of the roles that she took on. She took on roles that were at times controversial, especially for her as a Black woman, roles with interracial romance, roles that very much played to her beauty and her sexuality and her sensuality. I do feel that Dorothy had a tendency to sometimes be passive when she felt that someone else could better lead her or direct her or guide her. But, in a lot of ways, it was never anything that she was coerced to or forced into. She very much made these decisions herself. She very much wanted to do things that set her apart and do things that put her in the forefront as kind of being different from the norm.
I want a brown gown with a zop top with a hip slip, a lace waist in the sharpest pain. See my Sunday man.
Dorothy had Libra and Saturn represents maturity, the passage of time. It represents sort of how we grow. And she had that in Libra. And Libra is a sign that is indicative of balance. You think of the scales when you think of Libra. It's indicative of balance. And that's funny because, with Dorothy having some of the mental issues that she had, I feel that she rather lacked balance. And I think that she wasn't quite as matured emotionally as she needed to be. It wasn't all her fault. It definitely was a result of her upbringing. And when we get deeper into her houses and we kind of dive into each of her house placements, you're going to understand why that was, why Dorothy's emotional growth wasn't quite where it should have been. I don't think it was ever quite where it should have been. I think she was a little bit stunted emotionally. I think she lacked balance. I think she lacked maturity in certain decisions that she made, especially when it came to love and romance. And we get to Dorothy's Uranus placement. And Uranus is a power representing originality, freedom, and revolution. And I just have to read straight from the site here. I've been so far kind of putting my own interpretation on it, but I think this hits it out of the ballpark. It says Uranus in Pisces, which Dorothy had her Uranus placement in Pisces, can manifest itself in two possible ways. These people can be visionaries or idealists. They may have the tendency to become drug users who try to run away from the hard realities of life or who want to speed up the process of development. This is, of course, a path to self-destruction. They like to hide in their fantasy world. They are often good researchers who like to uncover things. And if Uranus is well aspected, they have great intuition. Now, that's something we had talked about earlier on in her chart. She was a very intuitive person. Had she had more balance, she would have had a brilliant mind. This was a woman who was extremely creative, very artistic, very intelligent, very intuitive. But there is that tendency there that they say, a tendency towards drug use. And you're going to see in her chart a lot of just depressive, lonely, isolating tendencies. If you know anything about Dorothy's story, she died of a drug overdose, and I don't know if they ever ruled it as a suicide or as an accidental death, but she died rather young, I think in her early 40s, of a drug overdose. And she self-medicated a lot to deal with her depression and her self-hate and her low sense of self-worth. Very sadly, as a lot of women do, and as a lot of women, especially back then, did. Her mental state was very fragile, and she did not have the proper care that she needed, especially in those days for our mental health system. She didn't have the mental health care that she needed. She never got that from the men in her life. And I feel that she never quite got what she needed. And she was someone who, when the going got tough, I just don't feel as if she had the capacity, the mental capacity or the strength to handle it anymore. Even though she did try. Again, if you read her story, she had kind of started turning her life around. She started working out and eating right. She got a new manager and stuff. She was trying, but I just feel like she was just tired. And with someone who had been in show business as long as she had, from childhood to her 40s, nonstop in entertainment, nonstop giving. It's no wonder that she just burned out so early in her career. It's very sad. But unfortunately, this house placement points to that drug use, and it points to that sort of burnout emotionally and physically and mentally that happened with Dorothy. Now we get into her Neptune placement. Neptune is a planet representing fantasy, illusion, spirituality, and imagination. Dorothy had Leo in Neptune. I view Leos as being very confident. These are the actresses of the zodiac. These are the drama queens of the zodiac. So Dorothy always knew, just like with that role of Carmen, she knew she was right for that role. She knew she was. And she was determined not to give up on that. So even though people looked at her, I think they said the director looked at her and they saw her as a, Saks Fifth Avenue, just high class girl. They didn't see her as this kind of nitty gritty bombshell type woman. She was just she was confident in her acting ability. She was confident in her ability to pull off that role, and she did the transformation. She adopted that new look, that style, and she slank in there, and she nailed that role. So in that way, Leo, people with that Leo and Neptune placement, I think, have that sort of self-confidence in the things that they truly feel they are meant for. She had that confidence in her craft, in her acting and singing and dancing abilities. Now we get into Pluto, and Pluto is the other ruling planet of Scorpio aside from Mars. It is a planet representing death and rebirth, transformation, regeneration, etc. And she had that Pluto placement in Cancer. Again, I feel like this is a very sensitive placement to sort of have. She, by nature, as I said before, she was a mothering spirit. She was someone who, just as I felt she was meant to be a star, she was born to be a star, I feel that Dorothy was meant to be a mother. I feel in a sense that she was very much meant for that domestic life. It wouldn't have been a very traditional domestic life, but I do think that she was very much meant for the life of a wife and mother. I think she was meant for that more domestic life. It says here that personal transformation can take place through the care of others. And these people are very sensitive and they need stability and harmony at the home. It's unfortunate because while, as I've been saying over and over again, she needed that. She really needed that. With those Cancer placements, she really craved and just desired a stable home. I think she desired the life of a happy wife, of a homemaker, of a mother. I really feel she would have thrived if she had that, but she just never had that. And that instability, I believe, led to her demise. This is someone who was a sweet, gentle, kind, caring soul. She would have been a wonderful mother, a wonderful wife, and she would have been a much happier person, I believe, if she'd had the ability to make her own home. And I feel, unfortunately, she never had that chance. Now that we've gotten all of Dorothy's planetary placements out of the way, I want to get into her house placements and like really dive into them, because these are going to further explore Dorothy as a person. So I'll start with the first house and go chronologically. Dorothy had Neptune in the first house, and it says that people with this placement often become victims of self-deception, illusion, or confusion. Specific goals may be missing in their lives, so they tend to miss opportunities or waste time. They sometimes don't know who they are and seek support and life guidance through others. They often have great mental abilities but are not fully aware of their extent. I just feel like that is very indicative of how Dorothy was pushed in the limelight. She was pushed towards this life of an entertainer. She never had the opportunity to choose that for herself. And I fully believe that with her placements, with her astrological makeup, if you will, I do believe Dorothy would have naturally gravitated towards some form of entertainment or the arts. But she needed to have made that decision for herself. And with her never sort of being able to establish a strong sense of her own identity without, her mother, without Geneva, without being pushed into it constantly, this probably led to a lot of her insecurity issues, her feelings of low self-esteem or low self-worth. She needed to find that for herself, and she never had that opportunity. And I think it led her to seeking comfort in the wrong people, in the wrong places. And as far as, having mental abilities and not being fully aware, again, this is a woman who was very intelligent, probably very inquisitive, but Dorothy was never allowed to go to school like a normal child. She wouldn't, touring the Chitlin circuit, she had to stop going to school because they may have another tour. So she never got to really nourish that intellectual side of herself in the way that she needed to, unfortunately. So it says here that Dorothy had Saturn in the third house, and it says that people with this house placement often have depression and low self-confidence. They typically have difficulties or delays in education, especially at a young age. So it just goes back into what I have been saying over and over again. Dorothy, she's such a tragic person to look at. She had so much promise, but it's almost as if the same way she was doomed to be a star, or she was rather destined to be a star, she was doomed to be a star who burned out and burned too brightly too soon, with these placements, with, the lack of balance throughout her lifetime. And unfortunately, she did have delays in her education. In fact, it's mentioned in her biography. One of her friends said that, she had to kind of pretend sometimes in school and play catch up. And it was something that she sometimes was embarrassed by. So it's unfortunate, but Dorothy was she was a tragic figure. Just going by these charts and these placements that she had, man.